What's going on, everybody? Jolt here from TheTokenMinorities, and I'm here with NPL Season 6, Week 11 against RizzyPOW and the Phoenix Sunfloras. Make sure to check out his channel. It will be linked in the description below. Very high-quality content that he puts out, and he probably has the most entertaining intro I've ever heard in my life. So if you don't already watch him, at least go watch a video to listen to his intro, because that's the best thing ever. Anyways, let's go ahead and jump into this scenario a little bit. So this game has a lot of significance. As if you can remember from last week's video, we did win. We won against Togevoir. No, we won against Cloud Envy last week, or at least the Jersey Devils. It was actually a fill-in coach, the Flying Bird, playing for Cloud Envy. But even so, it was a win. That moved us to a 5-5 record with, I believe, a +5 or +7 differential, which is good enough to be currently 4th place in my conference. Now, with how the playoffs work in the NPL, the top 4 teams from every conference, from the 2 conferences, move to the playoffs for the single elimination bracket. So I am currently just barely in the playoffs, and as long as I win out, I cannot lose my spot. That said, if I were to lose this game to Riz, he and I would become tied, probably for 4th or 5th place by record, and that would mean that it has to go to tiebreakers, which would be head-to-head and differential, and those are 2 things I don't really want to be getting into, because I would much rather just win outright, of course, because I do currently control my own destiny. So this game does mean a lot. If I lose, it's going to be a race to try to get that last position in the playoffs. If I win, I definitely am still in, and I can potentially clinch this week if Matty Brawlick beats Crobat for the win, which, based upon record, seems likely, but I'll spoil the end. I'll spoil what happens on that one here at the end of the video. Hopefully I remember to do that, and if I don't remember, I'm sorry. But anyways, let's dive into the matchup a little bit, as now you know what the big deal is about this game. Let's see what he's got. So he has Mega Kang. Let's start there. He has Mega Kang. This is Seismic Toss Mega Kang. It can use any possible move that a Mega Kang can possibly learn. It's a threat. It's a huge threat. And my team has some ways to give it a hard time. Probably one of the better matchups against Mega Kang in the entire league. But that said, my responses to Mega Kang can be dealt with by Mega Kang. And that's why it's such a really good mon, as I have things like the Talonflame, which with Flame Body can definitely check it. I also have things like the Ferrothorn, which with Iron Barbs and potentially Rocky Helmet can do a lot of damage to it. I also have a couple mons with over 400 HP for its total HP stat, being the Gastrodon and the Mandibuzz, which would be able to wall out a Seismic Toss set. So I do have a few mons that could do a lot of damage to it defensively, and offensively I have a few things that can outspeed and pretty strongly check it as well. That said, Mega Kang is still really good against me because it's able to deal with all of those most likely counters. So my building will be keeping that in mind, knowing essentially exactly what his Mega Kang set will be moving forward, and I'll be building around the expectations for that Mega Kangaskhan set, as he's pretty much forced to run a certain set of coverage moves, those being the Fire Blast, Rock Slide, and probably normal coverage, and the last move is kind of up in the air. I do anticipate something like Wish or Protect to deal with my Mega Lopunny, or to just generally get health back if he's a more defensive or just a bulkier Mega Kangaskhan. So that's basically what I'm expecting. I'm not expecting 4 moves. I'm not expecting anything to be able to hit certain mons on my team that hard. So that's just something that you keep in mind. Now, we'll dive more into that when I get to the team builder, but I just felt like highlighting Mega Kang right away. Next up, he has Hoopa Unbound, which is pretty threatening, of course, but I do have a few good responses to that as well. He has Hippowdon, which is Z-eligible. Kind of a weird Z-eligible choice, but I believe it became that way through a trade at some point during the regular season. And he has Sylveon, Dragonite, which is Z-eligible, Slowbro, Serena, Tornadus Eye, which is Z-eligible, Latios, Alola Marowak, and Heracross. So his team really doesn't have much synergy, that's for sure. He has a lot of ice weaknesses. He has no normal resist outside of Alola Marowak, but according to Mega Lopunny, that's not a resist either. So he has no normal resist. He has no flying resist. He has a lot of holes to his team defensively, but offensively he's actually very, very threatening, as the combination of Mega Kang, Hoopa Unbound, Dragonite, and even Torn Eye and Latios and Heracross, all of those are actually really good against my team. And if I bring a certain combination of mons, then the Alolan Marowak can also be a big threat, especially if it gets some sort of speed boost from the likes of maybe Flame Charge or Tailwind from the Tornado. So he has a lot of things that can deal with my team well offensively. So I believe it's going to be a low differential game no matter what, as there's no way that I'm going to be able to win this one handily. I don't really have the assets on my team to be able to pull off an easy sweep against him. I think it's going to be a lot of slugging and sacking, slugging and sacking. I really can't bring a stout defensive core against him because it's going to be broken down by his a variety of wall breakers. So many things on his team can be considered a wall breaker or can set up on my walls. For example, the Dragonite can easily set up on a lot of my walls. The Latios can actually calm mind up on a lot of my stuff as well. And even things like the Hoopa can really break down a lot of the more common stuff that I'd want to bring against him. So, yeah, he's got some threats on his team, but offensively speaking, on my team, I do have a lot of things that can put in a lot of work. Most notably is the Mega Lopunny, as he has no normal resist outside of the Alola Marowak, which doesn't count, so I can actually get away with running only normal coverage if I want to. I have no real reason to run fighting coverage against him unless I'm just trying to hit the Mega Kangaskhan super effectively, which is, you know, a pretty good thing to do, but it's really not necessary, and I'll show you the moveset that I'm going to bring here in a little bit, as I actually can get away with only running normal attacks against him, and I'm not expecting him to bring something like a Chillin' Berry or something like that. So, other big threats on my team. Thunderous Tea is a big threat against him, as well as he really doesn't have anything that can deal with the combination of Bolt Beam, so hit Thunderbolt, Hidden Power Ice, and then something like Sludge Wave to hit the Sylveon, or maybe Dark Pulse to hit things like the Latios, or to hit things like the Slowbro. Obviously, Thunderbolt does a pretty good job of that as well. Anyways, I'll talk more about that set when I get there as well. Azumarill, very big threat to his team. He cannot switch into Azumarill. Everything that resists Fairy is weak to Water. Everything that resists Water takes 1,000,000 from Play Rough, so just Azumarill is a massive threat against him. Nidoking is also a big threat against him, as well as my Talonflame. So my offense is all solid against him. So I'm going to win this game offensively. That's the only way to do it, and it's going to probably need to be supported by some hazards, as he does have some pretty nasty walls that can be a bit of a nuisance for my offensive threat. So let's go ahead and hop on over to the team, and as you can see, we are going to start this off with Mega Lopunny, and I'm running Fake Out, Facade, Last Resort, as I don't need fighting coverage to do a bunch of damage to Kangaskhan. If he is the more offensive Kangaskhan, I'm expecting with something along the lines of Rock Slide, Fire Blast, probably Return, and maybe Protect, or maybe like I don't know, Earthquake is an option, Earthquake or Crunch. That seems less likely. I really don't think he needs a third attack on Kang. It's more that set that I'm expecting. This set is plenty to be able to do damage to that, because that Kang would not have much bulk investment. It would only have enough bulk, it would only have HP from the speed creep of my Nidoking. That's how much bulk he could afford. So I would be able to essentially OHKO Mega Kangaskhan with Last Resort after Stealth Rock damage. So Adamant Mega Lopunny with Last Resort puts in a ton of work against this team, and this also might be able to catch the Hippowdon by surprise, or catch a Slowbro by surprise. If it thinks he can get away with attacking me, then there's a couple things that can happen here. If he decides to scald me with the Slowbro when he is at about 50%, knowing he can take 2 Facades, he might burn me, of course. That would power up my Facade. In the case of Hippowdon, he cannot freely just Earthquake, expecting to survive the following Facade after I go for one, because then he could be killed by the combination of Facade plus Last Resort. So my plan is to keep the Last Resort against my chest for the entire game until I absolutely need to reveal it, because once I reveal it, then of course the cat's out of the bag and I can't really just surprise him anymore. So whenever I do reveal that card, I want to make sure it's packs its punch. So this set definitely really solid against him, and it outpaces his fastest Mon, which I believe was the Torn Eye. Next up is the Nidoking. Now this set is designed to basically beat his Nidoking counters, as well as just do a bunch with Ice Beam, as Ice Beam hits most of his team really hard. In fact, I think he only had like 1 Ice Resist, being the Alola Marowak. I'm pretty sure that's the case. If I'm wrong, then I guess I just forgot, but I don't think he had many Ice Resists. So this definitely is really good against him, and the fact that it outpaces things like the D-Knight is really useful, as well as this gives me a nice guaranteed check to D-Knight, especially with Stealth Rocks up, as this does, of course, outspeed D-Knight and OHKO it, and the combination of Mega Horn and Poison Jab hit the rest of his team very hard. Funnily, this is actually walled by Alola Marowak, but I don't really think he's going to even consider trying to check me with Alola Marowak unless he's Shook a Berry, unless he's seen my entire moveset, so I'm not too concerned on that at all. And finally, I do have Toxic Spikes, as the combination of Toxic Spikes plus the Last Resort Mega Lopunny essentially guaranteed gets 2 to 3 kills. It's pretty ridiculous, and this also can couple as another offensive win condition for him for this matchup, as he just doesn't have many switch-ins at all, as I feel his most likely switch into something like this would be more of an Assault Vest Slowbro, or maybe an Assault Vest Hoopa, if he thinks I'm going to be special. But of course, Mega Horn from a max attack Nidoking can do a lot of damage. Definitely Oko Hoopa and do nearly half to Slowbro. With T-Spikes up, it would be a 2-hit KO. So especially on an Assault Vest variant, which I would anticipate being more specially defensive investment as well. So I think this can be very good against him offensively too. Now next up is the Thunderous T. This set is just a nasty plot sweeper, running Thunderbolt, Sludge Wave, and Dark Pulse with the Darkinium Z, and I feel like this is also really strong against him, as this coverage hits his entire team. I really wanted to bring Hidden Power Ice, but this set essentially avoids Resist Berries a little bit better, as I would anticipate seeing maybe on the Hippowdon something like a Rendo Berry, expecting the Grass Knot. I can maybe see a Yachi Berry on the Dragonite, expecting Hidden Power Ice Thundurus to try to check him. So this just deals with those kind of situations a little bit better, and just packs a little bit more of a punch overall against his team, as I need a Dark Pulse for the Alola Marowak anyways, and Darkinium Z Dark Pulse does a ton of damage to things like the Hippowdon, as well as this will actually do almost as much as Grass Knot would anyways. It'll definitely do more than Hidden Power Ice would for sure against the Hippowdon. So and at +2 against the anticipated Hippowdon spread being essentially max Phys Def for my Mega Lopunny, that's definitely sufficient in to Okoing it. It'll be enough to do the job. And yeah, so that's all on that. Next up is the Azumarill. This is just a Choice Banded, very standard set here. The EVs are a little bit funky, but this basically just lets me take special hits a little bit better, as well as still maintain some bulk in HP in case you need to take a hit from the likes of Heracross or other just physical attackers on his team. As Azumarill's defensive typing is very good against him. Both of his offensive and defensive typings are very, very good against him. So longevity is kind of important on Azumarill this week, but I feel like it's also really nice just to guarantee at least one kill. It might even get two, as this is a free switch into something like a Hippowdon going for Stealth Rocks, and that could essentially just be a free Waterfall play rough and kill something. So that's pretty good for sure. Next up is the Metagross. This is just an Assault Vest variant. It's a Trapper for the Latios, as that could otherwise prove to be a little bit annoying for my team, as it does have a nice speed tier against me. 110 is kind of annoying for my team to deal with. But the combination of Meteor Mash and Grass Knot hits essentially everything as hard as I need it to. Grass Knot for the obvious switch-ins of Hippowdon and Slowbro. It also will allow me to scout if he has a Rocky Helmet set, as Grass Knot does make contact, so that'll help out for my Mega Lopunny later on, knowing what I need to do with my Mon sets. I do have knockoff on 2 Mons this week. The Ferrothorn has it as well, that I'll show here in a little bit. So double knockoff is pretty nice, plus Grass Knot to be able to make sure Mega Lopunny plus Nidoking can win this game. That's the game plan. We're going to try to set that up in the matchup. Bullet Punch for obvious reasons. The priority is always nice, and Pursuit for the Latios and potentially the Tornadus as well, as this will also serve as a nice switch into that. And then finally the Ferrothorn. This is just an Aqua Berry set. It gives me one switch into Kang, obviously on a turn where I'm not expecting a Fire Blast, as I know he's going to have Fire Blast. That's 100%, 120% guaranteed. He's bringing Fire Blast Mega Kang, and this is basically just going to be a nice pivot around that, as well as a pivot around other Mons on his team. Just a general pivot. It's also nice to pivot around the Hoopa if I need to, as well as the Dragonite, as this does entirely check the Dragonite with the Aqua Berry, as even a +1 Dragonite cannot Oko this with Fire Punch when I have my Aqua Berry intact. So Gyro Ball will be able to do a little bit of work there, and of course get the Stealth Rocks up to make sure that the Mega Lopunny and the Nidoking have an easier job cleaning up his team. So that's what we got here. This is looking to be a very very volatile matchup for sure, as it's going to be, this team is obviously very offensive. It's essentially 4 offensive Mons, an Assault Vest Mon, and then a Rocker. So it's going to be probably a pretty quick game, probably low differential, probably very close. And here's hoping Hax doesn't decide it. So let's go ahead and jump on into this battle. And as you can see, he decided to bring the Mega Kang, Hippo, Torn Eye, Serena, Dragonite, and Heracross. So he's got definitely a threatening squad. First things that I notice is that there's no Hoopa, so I'm glad I did not bring the Manabuzz, because the only reason to bring Manabuzz in this matchup was to deal with the Hoopa. And I just kind of had a hunch that he wouldn't want to bring Hoopa because I have Manabuzz, because Hoopa does, or Mandibuzz does, wall any form of Hoopa. Even a Thunderbolt Hoopa is not a guaranteed way to deal with Mandibuzz, because I can very easily just be a Wakan Berry and U-turn on him and kill him. So it's honestly not that hard at all for a Mandibuzz to deal with a Hoopa, and for that reason I did not expect him to bring it, so I didn't even bring Mandibuzz. I did of course have other ways to deal with Hoopa. It's not like I was just going to leave myself out to dry if he did bring it. I had priority on 3 Mons, as well as just being able to take any one hit with my Ferrothorn, as well as outspeeding with my Nidoking and killing with a Megahorn. So I had ways to deal with Hoopa. That's not the situation here. But it's really nice to not be burdened by having the Mandibuzz, as looking at his team, Mandibuzz would have done nothing against him at all. It would have been very useless. Outside of switching into things like Serena and maybe the Torn, it would be very, very useless. So that's one thing to note here, but he also does have the Heracross, which means that my T-Spike strategy needs to be a little bit more delayed. I can't just set them up on turn 1 like I kind of wanted to do in the first place, because Guts Heracross from full health is not something that I really want to be dealing with. As you can probably imagine, my switch-ins are pretty limited with this being a more offensive team, and I am expecting that to be a Scarf Heracross, so I need to be able to wear him down a bit before I decide to put up the Toxic Spikes, although the T-Spikes are definitely necessary in order to take on things like the Kang, especially if he's a Wish Protect Kang, and also to take on the Hippo, as I don't have too much to Oko Hippowdon down without a boost, and T-Spikes are definitely really, really useful in getting that done. So in terms of the lead matchup, I am definitely going to lead with my Azumarill, as he has absolutely no way to avoid losing a Pokemon to Azumarill. That's just all there is to it. He will lose a Pokemon to Azumarill as long as he doesn't lead Serena, and if he does lead Serena, I can easily just pivot through things like my Metagross or things like my Nidoking or my Thundurus and do more damage to him offensively in that regard. So let's go ahead and hop on into this, and we'll see how this goes down, see if we can continue to hold that playoff spot moving forward. So I decided to lead off with my Azumarill as he leads off with his Torn, and I will pause immediately. So this turn is actually pretty big. There's a couple potential plays I can make here on turn 1, as early momentum is huge in a game that's likely going to be as offensive as I anticipate it to be. So I have a couple potential plays here. I could either go hard into my Metagross, expecting him to go for something like a Hurricane and maybe be choice locked, and what that would do is that would allow me to obviously chew up the hit and be able to pursue him and get some nice damage on that, maybe putting him in range of things like my Aqua Jet from Azumarill or just future priority for my other Mons. That's definitely an option. The other option is to stay in with Azumarill and just click Play Rough, as he has no Fairy Resist. I essentially net a free kill unless he goes into Hippo, and at which point I can probably just go hard into one of my other Mons, like maybe my Thundurus or something, or even my Ferrothorn to get up free Stealth Rock. So it's not the biggest deal in the world if he does go into Hippowdon on this turn. So what my thought process is that if I can get rid of the Tornadus immediately on turn 1, if I can get rid of Tornadus, how many checks left does he have for my Nidoking? He has to outspeed Nidoking to be able to check it. Offensively, Nidoking beats his entire team. No questions asked. He has 2 checks. 3 kind of. If he's a Scarf Heracross, it's kind of a pseudo check. I don't really think it's the best check in the world because he'd be forced to lock himself into Earthquake to do a lot of damage to my Nidoking, which would allow me to get a free setup with my Thundurus, which could be GG against his team, quite honestly, especially once I have Stealth Rock up. So I don't really consider Heracross to be the best check to Nidoking. So his only real checks are Tornadus and Kangaskhan. If I stay in with my Azumarill and take the whatever large amount of damage I'm going to take from maybe a Supersonic Sky Strike, or maybe a Specs Hurricane, or maybe even a Specs Grass Knot, although I believe Hurricane does more, Bloom Doom can't even kill me, if I stay in and take this damage and kill the Torn here, I think it's better for me in the long run, because it does really open up the door for the combination of Nidoking plus Lopunny, plus I will still have my Azumarill to do a lot of damage to anything else on his team with either priority or by maybe getting a free switch in against the Hippo going for Stealth Rocks, as that will also be another big hit for Azumarill, as I really don't expect a Hippo to try to stay in against the Azumarill. So staying in I really felt was my best play. We'll just kind of see what happens here. As he goes for Hurricane, he actually gets the Confusion, which is not too good. Fortunately, I don't hit myself in Confusion, but I missed the Play Rough. So yeah, in hindsight that was not the best play because of the hacks, but that really does suck, because now I'm forced to go into my Metagross. He hits another Confusion, he hits another Hurricane, and might as well be a Confusion as well, as he does confuse me. So I do take a little damage with Metagross, and that damage is important because what that does is that puts me in range of 2 close combats from Heracross. Without having to take that damage, I would not have had to have been in range of that damage from of the close combat from Heracross, and that's another reason why I didn't really want to have to hard switch Metagross in, but I don't want to just risk my Metagross right away, especially as he could have just gone for the Heat Wave and done a bunch of damage to me. But I also just really wanted to get rid of this big threat immediately, as Azumarill couldn't be OHKO'd. It was essentially a free kill for me, but of course we missed the Play Rough, so what can you do, right? But here he's going to double into his Hippos. I do predict that, and double back into my Azumarill, as now we're going to have to start making some plays to get us back in this game, as we're definitely behind right now. As now he's going to pull the switch into his Serena, and I predict that as well, and go for the Play Rough. We'll get up 99%. I don't know how much bulk investment he had, but if he had no bulk investment, that was definitely a roll in my favor to kill. So a little unfortunate there. Here, expecting him to predict my Ferrothorn and go into my Thundurus as well, and now I'm going to be able to get my kill with Dark Pulse. So I'm able to pull it back a little bit here, which is definitely nice. As now he's going to go into his Tornadus, and I will pause again, as this is also a pretty pivotal turn in the game. So due to the calc of this. So he's definitely going for his Timid, Specs, Heat Wave, guaranteed. I have about a 75% chance of dying to this, meaning I have about a 25% chance of surviving this, which happens to be a higher chance than it was to miss the play rough. So I'm willing to take these odds. No, that's a horrible excuse, but essentially I was willing to sack Thundurus here if I needed to, because everything else on my team was so important. He didn't bring the Slowbro, which is the main reason why I have Thundurus here, and I felt like I would still be able to win this game without Thundurus potentially. It's definitely not an amazing position because of the play rough miss, as this thing should just be dead, but I felt that if I did sack off Thundurus here to whatever he wants to go for, I could go into maybe my Metagross again and Pursuit Trap it. Obviously if he goes for Heat Wave, that's not really the case. If he goes for Heat Wave, I could go into my Mega Lopunny and do a lot of damage to him that way, or maybe double back into my Azumarill again, expecting him to go into his Hippo, something like that. I can make other plays, but what actually ends up happening here is that he is not as fast as I am, and he just drops. So definitely a building error on his end, but this does put us in a very nice position, as now I'm going to be able to, again, just sack off my Thundurus, as I don't really feel like I need it at this point in the match, and it gives me valuable information on this Kang, proving that it is an offensive Kang, definitely a coverage Kang, so it's going to have, it does have Rock Slide, it definitely is also going to have Fire Blast for Ferrothorn. It's a matter of what its other moves are. It could be Wish Protect, it could also just be something like Return Protect, something like Return Wish. Those are all possibilities. I really don't expect 4 attacks, but I guess we'll see what happens there. As now I'm going to go into my Mega Lopunny to check this thing, and he'll probably go into his Hippowdon, but my best play is still to go for Fake Out, because it does at least provide me with the last resort option later on if I need to, as he does reveal the Protect, expecting my High Jump Kick, so that worked out very well for sure, as now he's going to predict my High Jump Kick and go hard into the Heracross. I'm trying to make an offensive switch, as he does eat the 60% from the Facade, so that's pretty nice for sure, as now I'm going to be forced to go into my Metagross to sack this off, as it's not really going to be walling anything more in this game, as Tornadus is gone. He didn't bring the Latios or the Sylveon, so definitely not the worst thing in the world to lose the Metagross at this stage in the game, as now I'm going to be able to check the Heracross with my Nidoking offensively, as now I can just set up a T-Spike as he's forced to switch out. Now what this T-Spike does is this definitely will allow me to wear down the likes of the Kangaskhan and the Hippowdon and the Heracross, all of which are really useful to slowly get worn down. Now here I make a little bit of a play again, expecting him to expect my Ferrothorn switch in, which was very obvious on that turn, and just knowing he would have Fire Blast. So I do just go hard to my Lopunny, even if it goes for Fire Blast and burns me. I have Facade, which will then have 140 base power, which essentially just gives me more PP of Last Resort, which is pretty darn cool. So I wasn't fearing that at all, obviously. And now what I'm going to be able to do is just fire off another, I believe fire off a Fake Out on this turn, as he goes into the Hippo, revealing the Rocky Helmet, but that's fine because he is now taking Toxic Chip damage. Now here, this is also an important realization in this battle. So Mega Lopunny is at 53% right now. An Earthquake from a defensive Hippowdon does about 52% max, so it should be my utmost priority to maintain Lopunny at this amount of health until Hippowdon's Rocky Helmet is gone. Okay, so that is a very crucial point in this match when I realize this, because what that means is I need to knock off this Rocky Helmet as soon as possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch out and go into my Ferrothorn immediately, and as he goes for Earthquake, revealing that he is a defensive Hippowdon. Now here, I could go straight for the knockoff. I could also go straight for the Stealth Rock. Those are my two options. Stealth Rocks are definitely more important long term, because the Dragonite with the multi-scale attack can set up a DD against I guess my Lopunny would be what it would set it up against, as well as my Ferrothorn to an extent if he is able to pop my Akaberry with something else on his team and potentially sweep me. So I definitely need to get up my Stealth Rocks now. Although Knockoff is tempting, I do think Stealth Rocks are my better play, as he does decide to actually switch into his Heracross, which puts me in quite a difficult situation as I get up my Stealth Rocks. So, couple options here. This play, it took me a long time to decide in the middle of the game. To those who watched it live, I apologize. But yeah, this was a tough turn, because what can happen here is I could sack my Ferrothorn. What that would do is that would, after Iron Barb's damage and after Poison damage, make it so that the Heracross can never come in again and get another kill. That's the benefit to that play. Issue being, if I make that play, I lose my Ferrothorn. I'm forced to check the Heracross with my Lopunny. I'm able to take out the Heracross with Lopunny as he goes into Hippo. At that point, because Ferrothorn is gone, I'll no longer have any switch into Hippo, and he can freely spam Earthquake against my team and clean me up. That is not the play, especially whenever the Hippo still has his Rocky Helmet intact. So I can't sack Ferrothorn here. My best play is to actually sack my Azumarill, despite the fact that that's definitely my best way to take on the Hippowdon at this point. Really my only way to take on the Hippowdon at this point, unless I can get rid of the Rocky Helmet. It's still my best play to do that, because I still feel like I have opportunities to knock off the Hippowdon with Ferrothorn later on. It shouldn't be that hard, as I should be able to hard switch Ferrothorn into Hippowdon every time, and once this Heracross is gone, and especially after this Heracross goes for one more attack, you won't be able to double into Heracross at any point, because if he doubles, he will take poison damage and die. So my best play is to go into my Azumarill here to sack it off. As he decides to go, I believe, for the close combat on this turn again, which is understandable, as now he is going to drop to, I believe, like 15%, 17%, 16%. So now he has exactly one Stealth Rock switch in remaining, and now expecting him to potentially go into his Hippowdon, but even so, my best play was always to go for Fake Out here, because what that will do is that will give me, again, the option to go for the last resort if he goes into something like Dragonite trying to set up for free on me. So I did go for Facade there, as now he's going to be forced to go into his Hippowdon, and expecting him to go for the Slack Off. I'm going to double into my Ferrothorn, and that's exactly what he does. And now I have another opportunity to go for the knockoff. He either is going to go into his Dragonite and lose his item, or is going to go into his Heracross and lose his Heracross. He decides to stay in with his Hippowdon, of course, and lose his Rocky Helmet, meaning that the combination of Lopunny plus Nidoking is looking like it's going to win this game if I play it correctly. Now here, I'm going to hard into my Lopunny, expecting either a Slack Off or an Earthquake. If he went for an Earthquake on that turn, I'd be able to go for Fake Out plus Facade, and he would then be weakened into range of my Nidoking, which would mean that I win with Nidoking. If that made sense. So I'll go through that one more time just to make sure. So if he were to Earthquake me on that turn I switch in, I would be left at about 2% or so. So then I can go for the Fake Out, and he would at that point be at like 30%. He might be in range of Facade. I assume he'd be in range of Facade. If not, the worst he can do is Slack Off on my Facade, and then I could spam Last Resort until he dies. And all I needed to do at this point was keep the Hippowdon in range of Nidoking for Nidoking to win. As once he goes Heracross, all I have to do is go into my Ferrothorn. Heracross cannot switch in twice. I can only switch in once. So he goes for the Slack Off as I go into my Lopunny. I Fake Out on him, and then I'm going to be able to go straight for the Facade, which will put him in range of a Last Resort if he decides to attack me, thinking he can kill me. Fortunately, he cannot quite kill me, and now I'm going to be able to reveal the tech. The Last Resort is in, and down goes the Hippowdon, and now all he has left is the Dragonite and the Heracross. He decides to go into Heracross, and then he flexes on me a little bit and pursues me on the way out. So nice play on his end. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to preserve Mega Lopunny's differential, but down goes the Heracross. All he has left is the Dragonite, and I can take on the Dragonite with the Nidoking that is guaranteed to outspeed as long as he has not Choice Scarfed, and there's no way he can kill me with a Banded Extreme Speed. So down goes the Dragonite, and we pull off the 2-0 victory against RizzyPOW and the Phoenix Sunfloras. So definitely a very good game. That was really close. I'm definitely fortunate that he miss EV'd his Tornadus, but if it didn't miss the play rough, that definitely wouldn't have mattered because of, I guess, the sequence of events that happened following that. So really good game for sure, and this was definitely a good win to pick up, as now we are 6-5, I believe a +9 differential, +7, something like that. We are still 4th in the conference after the events of this week, and I will go ahead and hop on over to the standings real quick so you can see where we all are right now. So as you can see, I'm up here, Toronto Raptors in the Luxury Conference. We are the 4 seeds still in our conference. We're behind Iron Flash Gaming, who kicked our butts in week 4. We're behind Matty Brawlick, who barely squeaked by us in week 5, I believe. And we're behind Togevoir, who we beat a couple weeks ago. So we're definitely in the mix of the playoffs. We definitely have the differential of a playoff team, so that's pretty cool for sure. But what this means is that we're still not locked. You don't see an X next to our name. You don't see any X over here. We're not locked yet. We need to win next week against Blake to be guaranteed lock, or we need Chris Togevoir to beat Danza for us to be locked. Either one of those events will guarantee that we're locked up. There's actually a possibility, though, that we could move all the way to the 2 seed, which is pretty interesting for sure, as if it's actually the number 1 against the number 2 this last week of the season. It's Iron Flash Gaming against Matty Brawlick. If Detroit beats St. Louis, and I beat the Baltimore Braviaries, Moxie and Fernape, who I play next week, and Togevoir loses to Danza or just has less differential than me at that point, I could move as high as the 2 seed before the playoffs, which is kind of cool considering I was down in the 5 to 6 range for the whole middle portion of the season. So that would be pretty neat if that could happen. I don't really expect that to happen, especially because Detroit doesn't really need to win. They've already locked the #1 seed in the conference, so I don't really expect there to be too many high-quality sets in that game. I think it might just be kind of a wash of a game, but we'll see what happens. I'm not really sure. Maddie might take it really seriously. I'm not sure on Zazo on that one, but I guess we'll see. But yeah, so we have a chance of getting the 2 seed, which is pretty cool after everything we've been through this season. So fortunately, the chokes early in the season haven't come back to bite us yet. Hopefully that remains true for week 12, but I guess we'll see on that. So thanks for watching, guys. Toronto is still in the playoffs. Hopefully we can secure that spot here in the next week and actually make it to the playoffs after week 12 concludes. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you all next time. Peace.